Hello, worthy citizens, and welcome to the screencast called Fragments and Run-ons. These are mistakes. You can consider them the dark side of the sentence. Okay, before we move on, let's review what we know about the complete sentence. A complete sentence contains a subject, a predicate, and a complete thought. Your subject usually consists of a noun or a pronoun. Your predicate is always a verb. And remember, a complete thought can be as few as 2 words. It can be a ton of words as long as you have one significant, distinct thought. And why is it important to know about a complete sentence? Because if you understand the basic components of a complete sentence, you can use that knowledge to understand how to avoid sentence fragments and run-on sentences, which are mistakes in our writing. So we want to be careful not to include those in any expository work. All right, so let's get into the basics. What is a sentence fragment? Well, the word fragment means piece. So a sentence fragment means a piece of a sentence. And since it's only a piece of a sentence, it means that it's missing one of the 3 elements that make a sentence. Namely, it's missing a subject, a predicate, or a complete thought. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. If you put these 2 sentences together, after a grueling lifting session, Arnold went home exhausted. You've written it as 2 sentences, but unfortunately, really what you have is a sentence piece, and then you have a complete sentence. So your complete sentence is Arnold went home exhausted. You have the subject Arnold, predicate went, and a complete thought. After a grueling lifting session isn't a complete thought. It's just additional information telling when Arnold went home. So it can't sit there in that space looking like a sentence. That's a grammatical mistake. It's called a fragment. If you look at the next sentence pieces, you can see you have the same thing again. He went directly to bed because he couldn't see straight. Okay, you have 2 groups of words both masquerading as sentences, but only one of them really is a sentence. He went directly to bed is a sentence. It's got a subject, a predicate, and a complete thought. The next chunk of words does not have a complete thought. When you say because he couldn't see straight, it then requires something else. It actually requires the sentence that went before it. If you had just said he couldn't see straight, that piece could stand alone. But the word because makes that whole group of words unable to stand on its own. It is not a complete chunk. So why is a fragment that big a deal? Well, because it's grammatically incorrect. Now, if you're writing poetry or fiction, a timely fragment can actually carry meaning and can be a valuable tool to an author. But in academic writing, a fragment makes the writer look less smart, and you never want to look less smart. Basically, a fragment runs the risk of confusing the reader, and so then the writer's meaning risks being lost in the confusion of the reader. So if you are the writer, you want to be sure that you're not creating opportunities to lose your reader. And a fragment is an opportunity to lose your reader. So now that we know that we can't have those in expository pieces, the question becomes, how do I fix a fragment? A fragment fix is a super easy fix. All you do is take the period out before or after your fragment, and you're going to combine it with the sentence that comes before or after it. Now, when you're choosing which sentence to combine it with, as a writer, you just need to know, where was your meaning? Where's your chunk of meaning? If the chunk of meaning is that your fragment should attach to the sentence before it, then attach it there. And if it should attach to the sentence that comes after it, attach it there. Now, in a couple of weeks, we're going to get into comma rules, and that's going to help you to understand how to attach your fragment to its home sentence. But in the meantime, you just need to know that to fix a fragment, you attach it to the sentence before or after it, depending on which thing makes the most sense. So for example, if you have after the prom, we all went out to eat, which is wrong, you can take after the prom, attach it to the sentence after it using a comma. And so then you get after the prom, comma, we all went out to eat. Fine. Then if you say, I like you, period, because you are nice, that doesn't work. But if you say, I like you because you are nice, then that does work. And since you're attaching it to a sentence before, you don't need to use the comma. Again, we'll get into those comma usages in the next couple of screencasts. Okay, so if we go back to those original examples, you can just see that we connect those fragments to their host sentence, and then it works. So after a grueling lifting session, comma, Arnold went home exhausted. He went directly to bed because he couldn't see straight. And those are your corrections. Okay, the next thing we need to think about is what a run-on is. So a run-on is two sentences written incorrectly as one sentence and separated using a comma or no punctuation at all. A couple of examples to show you this would be Mickey Mouse went home to find Pluto, which is a complete chunk by itself. And then you have he was sleeping on Mickey's bed. That is another complete chunk. And you can see that the author here has tried to connect those chunks with a comma. And I'm here to tell y'all a comma is not strong enough to separate two complete thoughts. So if you write two complete thoughts and put a comma in the middle of them, you've created a run-on sentence. So a lot of people will think, oh, well, I'll just remove that comma and I'll be all set. Well, that's the next set of examples. Pluto barked excitedly. Mickey read him a bedtime story. That doesn't work any better because if you go back up to the run-on definition, remember, a run-on is two sentences that you've tried to put together using either a comma or nothing. Neither one of those options is going to work to make this a sentence. It's always going to be a mistake. Okay, so how do I fix it? Well, here's where we want to talk about the superheroes of punctuation. So if you've ever seen the Justice League, you know that that's a whole bunch of superheroes who go out and they thwart crime. And there's kind of a hierarchy of coolness with regard to the superheroes. So Superman is our coolest superhero in the League of Justice. He's kind of the ringleader. He is strong enough to stop a villain with a single move. If you think of him as a piece of punctuation, then what's the strongest piece of punctuation? A piece of punctuation that can stop a run-on with a single piece of punctuation? Well, that would be a period, or frankly, a question mark or an exclamation mark. So essentially, Superman are those end pieces of punctuation, the pieces of punctuation that can stop a sentence. So instead of saying, I ran home, comma, I grabbed my shoes, which is incorrect, that's a run-on sentence, you would say instead, I ran home, period. I grabbed my shoes, period. So that is a Superman piece of punctuation. So the first way to fix a run-on, the Superman way, is to just divide your run-on sentence into two complete sentences. Okay, now as a writer, you are afforded a whole bunch of opportunities to make choices about your writing. A Superman, or changing a run-on into two complete sentences, is one choice you can make, but that really does separate your two ideas into discrete chunks. And perhaps what you have are two sentences that are closely connected. And if that is the case, then what you want to choose is a semicolon. We'll call that the Aquaman, because a semicolon is semi-cool. Not as cool as Superman, you don't make two complete sentences, but it's cool enough to make a correct sentence. And what you would do as a writer is you would make a choice to show your reader that the two sentences you're trying to write are very closely connected. And you would do that with an Aquaman. It signals your reader that you are a savvy, astute writer who can connect sentences correctly in meaningful ways. So for example, if you say the man ran home, he was afraid of the dark, that is obviously wrong. It's a run-on. And to fix it, you might say the man ran home, semicolon. He was afraid of the dark. And that is correct. The semicolon there is a meaningful, purposeful way for the writer to connect the fact that the guy ran home because he was afraid of the dark. So it creates a connection where a period wouldn't do that for you. And then finally, you have the Wonder Twins. Now, indulge me in a quick story. If you have ever watched The League of Justice, you know there are two twins, and they are also superheroes. But unfortunately, neither one of them possesses any magical powers of their own. In order for the Wonder Twins to work, they have to put these kind of rings together and go, Wonder Twin powers, activate. And then one of the twins can form of some kind of object without boundaries. For example, in one episode, one of the twins formed of a pail of water. So then you get this pail of water. And the other twin then can form of an animal. And he says like, form of a falcon. And then the falcon swoops down and picks up the water and throws the water on the villain. And that's how he thwarts the villain. Now, admittedly, those are some lame superheroes, right? But the point I'm trying to make with those superheroes is they can't do anything alone. So the Wonder Twins is like trying to use a comma to separate two complete ideas. It's not strong enough. It's like trying to use a Wonder Twin to thwart a villain. He needs his other twin. So in this case, your Wonder Twin combination is a comma plus a coordinating conjunction. Now, in case you're like, a coordinating what? Like, did you just sneeze? A coordinating conjunction are one of 7 words: and, but, or, nor, for, so, and yet. You may have memorized them as the fanboys. So that's what a coordinating conjunction is. So the Wonder Twins can separate 2 complete ideas and do it correctly. For example, I ate 2 sandwiches, comma, I drank some milk. Well, that's wrong because it's a run-on, because it's 2 complete ideas trying to be separated with a comma. But if you say, I ate 2 sandwiches, comma, and I drank some milk, well, now it's correct. Okay, so now that you've understood what a sentence is and how that is different from a fragment and how that is different from a run-on, I just want you to take a couple of minutes, write these down in your notes, and define whether they are a sentence, a fragment, or a run-on. Okay, your review for tonight is to be able to identify subject, predicate, noun, pronoun, verb, fragment, and run-on, be able to define those terms and then identify them in a sentence or 2. And that's all we've got for you today. We'll see you guys in class. Thanks.